Hey ladies! So I still have some crazy beach hair going on, and I also realized that I needed to get this video out about the heroine's journey. So here I am with my crazy beach hair and my tube top going on. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the heroine's journey right now because this is something that we go through as we're going through our Becoming Superwoman clubs. This is a model or a framework that we use, and heard back that it would be really good to have a video explaining a little bit more in depth about this. So let's take a really quick look at that heroine's journey and see what we're talking about. All right, so we have right now on your screen the heroine's journey. So it starts up here with the one heroine. All right, so we had some discussions about how individualistic this is and whether this is one heroine or if it's a bunch. And what we came up with was that it does start with one heroine, and then the very first thing that happens is that there's an invitation to the sisterhood. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about the huge structure overall here so that you get a better idea of what's going on with this, and then I'll dive into each part, okay? So the heroine's journey is based off of Joseph Campbell's The Hero with a Thousand Faces, where he put together this whole system of the heroic journey. So he did comparative religion of these religions all over the world. It was I think, one of the first kind of big ones that he did. He published it in 1949. And he came up with this heroic journey. So he looked at all of these different myths, all of these stories around the world, and he found this framework that happened over and over and over and over again in these myths and these stories. And he put it together as a heroic journey. So what we have kind of come up with, or what we've sort of realized in our lives, is that the heroic journey, or at least what I've realized in my life, is that the heroic journey is something that we can apply to every single stage of our life. And in fact, we can actually apply it even in little minuscule kind of little mini heroic journeys. So you can actually look at every single day of your life as a heroic journey if you choose. You can wake up in the morning and say, okay, there is something that I believe today. So if you look right here, right now, this one up here is belief. There's something that I believe today that probably needs to be broken a little bit. There's something that I need to move forward in my life. My belief that I hold on this right now, the story that I tell myself about this right now, probably needs a little bit of shaking up. And so if that's true, and if every morning we wake up and see that, and there's this invitation to that, so then that's the invitation to the sisterhood. So for women, this is very much a collective thing that we do. So the heroic journey, as outlined by Joseph Campbell, is a solitary journey of one man. And so at least for women, this seems to be something that is a very collective journey. And so a lot of times for women, when they're in that belief stage, when they're in that storytelling stage of a story that they realize needs to be changed somehow, okay? So a story that could be, for an example, for me in my life, something that happened for me was I had a story that I told about myself for a long time, was that I was just a stay-at-home mom, okay? And that's all that I had done, and that I wasn't really qualified to do anything else about that. And at some point I realized there was this thing calling out to me. There's an invitation to break that belief. And that invitation for women is an invitation to join some kind of a group, some kind of a broader conversation, and see where that can be broken down, okay? So this is why we do our clubs in groups of people, because for women, having that group structure, that support structure, those people to talk to about all of this kind of stuff is very important. So when I realize that there's a belief that's going on in my life, or there's something that's happening in my life that maybe needs to be challenged a little bit, a lot of times I will talk to somebody about it. So talking is very important also for women. And this is something that we talk about in our clubs. In our heads, we can go through 900 words per minute, but we can only speak about 150 words per minute. So we got a lot of stuff going on up there. And so talking it out with people actually helps us to even understand what is going on inside of our heads. Okay, so this is where we have these beliefs. We have these things that are going on, these stories that are being told over and over in our heads, and they need to be broken somehow. And so that's where that invitation to the sisterhood comes in. So the next part of it, if you look, is this mother crone or guide that's here, okay? So women have 3 different archetypes. I'm gonna come back on the big screen. There are 3 different archetypes that are kind of common for women. So there is the kind of young virgin, there is the seductress, and then there's the crone. And they can actually even be seen as stages throughout a person's life. So the mother kind of crone guide can, a lot of times it's seen as very it's not great right now in society, right? Because who wants to be a crone? Well, I personally am very happy to be a crone. I love all of my gray hairs, and I love being able to talk to the women that are kind of coming up in the next round, because I know how much I benefited from women who put themselves in that mentorship position for me, and I kind of wish I'd had more. So the next step is that you kind of meet somebody that could be your guide, right? Somebody who kind of might have a little bit more wisdom on that thing, or might help you break out of that belief that's been told, that you've been telling in your head about this. Might help you tap into your instinct. Okay, so if we look at the next phase, or the kind of next part of this journey, if you look at the top here, we have belief, right? And so we're sitting up here in this top part, we're sitting up here in this belief area, this storytelling area. There's a story that's going on in our head. And as we start realizing that the story needs to be broken a little bit. And there's an invitation to join some kind of a sisterhood. And then as we join that sisterhood, we find that there's also a mother or a crone kind of guide person that's there that can help us tap into our instinct. So once we cross the threshold, then we start kind of letting go of that old belief of whatever we had and start tapping into our deeper instinct inside of us. All right. So what we know on the inside, and it's kind of recognized now that instinct part of us is a very feminine sort of an energy there. Okay. So there's more on that. There's a lot there. We women in general, we tend to have some really great instincts that we can tap into. Okay. So this is the instinctual part of us women. It's us allowing ourselves to kind of go in and trust what's going on inside of us. Trust those words that are being told to us, where we have this belief where we're like, this belief up here, it's telling me one thing, but my instincts are telling me another thing. There's another thing going on inside of here. And so this is where that kind of breaking happens, this threshold of crossing over into the unknown and diving down into that instinct part of ourselves and saying, okay, this is the part that I need to listen to right now. All right, this is going to really help me as I'm going along in this journey. And that mother crone guide really helps you to tap into that and what that is. Okay. So the guide, the mother crone guide isn't there to say, this is exactly what you need to do. These are the steps that you need to take. For women, it's very much a specifically like, how do we get in touch with this instinct? Okay. How do we tap into it? Because we know what those answers are. We just sometimes need help with guiding ourselves in there. I know that I have needed a lot of help with that in my life. Okay, so that's where we cross the threshold into this instinct part here. So I'm going to share my screen again and you're going to be able to see. So as we're crossing into this instinct part, there are a couple of things that happen. So this is the beginning of the transformation, all right? And what will have happen there is doubt in ourselves and doubt in the instinct that we're having there, and disbelief in our ability to actually do anything about this, and disbelief that that instinct is really true. A lot of times that instinct is telling us something wonderful about ourselves. And sometimes we women don't do a great job in actually believing that. Okay, so those are kind of the things that happen to us there as we're really crossing over into that threshold of, I need to listen to my instinct. I need to listen to that voice that's going on inside. I need to trust it and believe it. There will be a lot of voices around there that voice that doubt and that disbelief. So then the next thing that happens is we have challenges and temptations. So as we're really going through and we're trying to break this old story, there will come things that happen that are trying to get us to get back into that story. Okay. So we'll have things that happen throughout, even if it's that day where we're trying to break that story, we'll have things that happen throughout that day that are going to be challenges and temptations. Okay. So if, for example, my story when I wake up in the morning, this morning, if my story that I'm telling in my head is, I am a mom that doesn't have a whole lot of patience. And that's a belief. That's a story that I'm hearing inside of my head. And my instinct on the inside is saying, wait a minute here. I think you have a lot of patience, actually. In fact, I think sometimes it's good for kids when moms don't have endless patience, right? It teaches them something. There's some kind of a thing that's calling to me saying, maybe that story isn't really actually helpful. Maybe it's just a belief. Maybe it's not true. Okay. And so I start kind of talking to some people about it, start asking questions. I can even send messages, right? Of like, no, I'm kind of struggling with this right now. What do you guys think? And find somebody or kind of some collective even that is that mother kind of crone guide who says, maybe you should look at this, right? Like maybe this is a different way of thinking about it. Maybe this is a way to frame it differently for you. And I start getting into that point where I'm starting to believe my instinct. I'm starting to actually even just listen to my instinct, hear what it's actually saying, as opposed to really, really believing that story, that belief that I held about myself before. And then as I'm going in there, I'm going to think, I don't really know if that's true, because I've heard that, moms really need a lot of patience and they need to, really be able to kind of put up with anything with kids. And so that's that doubt and that disbelief. And then also the like, I don't really actually think I'm that great of a mom, right? Like, good grief, I've totally messed up so many times with my kids. And I know I have, like, I don't really think that I have what it takes to be able to do that or kind of have that part of me. And so that's where that doubt and that disbelief, those voices start coming into my head as I'm starting to really dive down and start listening to this instinctive voice here. And then I'll have challenges and temptations throughout the day. So examples of that can be my kids act like poop heads to each other, right? So like one of my kids will be like, that wasn't fair. That wasn't a nice thing to do. And I'll be like, we don't talk to each other like that in this family. We just don't. That's not our thing, right? And I'll go in and I'll give them a swat on the behind and I'll be like, that this is not how we talk to each other in the family. And those are challenges and temptations. And so the thing is here is that it's not about if you perfectly answer the challenges and temptations, right? It's the being able to look at that and say, that's an example. Right there, that's an example. Would it have been better if I had had endless patience and gone in and said, sweetheart, love, remember that that's not how we talk in this family? Or did my child really need that wake-up call for me to go in and get their attention and be like, this is not what we do. We are now directing in a different way. This is what we're going to do. In the future, we're going down this path instead of this path that you were going down. Okay, so that's kind of where that challenges and temptations are. And it's an invitation for me to then think about it and say, what did I think about that? Now, what is my instinct telling me about this situation? How can I trust that instinct more and not listen to all the voices that are going on out there? All right. So then at a certain point, as this is going on, there is going to be a point where you have a revelation. There's going to be something that happens that is like super hardcore that makes you all of a sudden have a new understanding, this instinct voice is like coming up and coming out. And it's like, you can't not listen to that anymore. Okay. And so there's some kind of a thing that will happen around you and it's different for every single person. So an example for this, your one day kind of heroic journey about this is that you could have your child come up to you and say, Mom, you are the meanest mom on the planet. And I hate it when you come up and you spank me. It makes me feel awful. It makes me feel terrible. It makes me feel like a terrible human being. And you know what? That's the only reason why I actually do what I really do, right? Or your child can come up and say, you are the meanest mom on the planet. I hate it when you spank me. I don't like it. It doesn't help me in any way whatsoever. And it makes me feel like this terrible person. And I, as a person who had that old belief, I am now entering into the abyss of transformation, okay? If I heed the call, if I keep walking forward, because I can at that point step back, right? Like I can step back and be like, I'm not going to go here anymore. This is too hard. This is too much for me to go. So if as I'm going, I will come into this point where the abyss is there waiting for me and I can dive in or I can walk away. Okay. And that's kind of true throughout the whole heroine's journey. There's always times where you can just walk away from it being this actual heroine's journey and just having it be another day. Okay. Which is fine. It's totally fine. It's just, this is a possibility for your framework to be able to move you forward. All right. So you can come to this point of this abyss and say your child is like, you're the worst mom on the planet. I hate this, whatever. And that's an invitation for you to then sit and think about this and say, what is my instinct telling me right now? My instinct is telling me that even though my child might hate me now, even though my child might hate me forever, even though this might end with them never talking to me again, it doesn't matter because I'm here in service to my child. I don't care if they hate me for the rest of their lives. It is my job to teach them how to behave. It is my job to teach them how to go. And I don't care if they hate me forever and ever. That is not what is important to me. What is important to me is that they go forward and they know how to be the good people in the world. They have the tools that I have given them. So that for me is a great transformation. That actually happened for me on a run with my daughter, where I got to that point with her where I was like, she might literally hate me for the rest of our lives because I am pushing her so hard. And you know what? As much as that might tear my heart apart, what would tear my heart apart more is to see her not achieve the things that she wants to achieve. And so I have to be this mom that's super courageous and willing to be hated forever in service to her because that's how much I love her. And that for me was a very big transformation. And it was hard. Like it was the abyss. It was me jumping in and it was me feeling this death of a part of myself on the inside, right? Because I want to have that loving relationship with my daughter. I want to snuggle with her. I want to hug her. I want to be that person for her. And so I kind of needed to let that belief, that story of like, I'm the mom that my daughter will always come and talk to, I needed to let that die. And that's what died for me in that abyss, in this example, okay? So that's where that transformation came about because I started really listening to this instinct that was going on inside of me of like, there's something more here for you. And you know it, Carmen. You know this. Listen to this voice that's in here. So that was my transformation. And in just this example, that was my transformation. That was my revelation. There was a death of my old belief and there was a rebirth of a new belief. Okay. So that's where this transformation comes about. And then the next step is acceptance of it, which can be very hard. Acceptance can be super hard, especially I think for us women. I think that it happens for men as well. I don't know. Acceptance is really hard for me. So I'm not going to generalize there. I'm just going to say acceptance is really hard for me. Acceptance of these new stories, acceptance of myself as being okay, and acceptance of that kind of instinct of what's calling to me there. That's very hard for me to kind of bring in and be okay with, as opposed to kind of apologizing for. Or even a lot of times I'll be like super prickly and defensive about stuff because I'm acting it out courageously, like I'm courageously acting out these things that I believe inside of myself, but I haven't really accepted that that's an okay thing to do. And so I'll be super prickly and defensive about it so that if anybody asks me anything about it, I will push back and I will be very angry about that whole situation because I haven't accepted it on my inside. And then the other part of that is integration. So it's accepting it and then integrating it as a part of yourself and not being afraid to go out and tell that story. So that's a big part of it, right? Like that, okay, now I have this new thing that's going on. I have this new story. I've got this new belief that's going on inside of me, and I need to accept it into myself and be okay with it. And then I need to integrate it and be willing to actually share that with other people. Okay. And then the sharing comes with the last part. So the last part of that is the return and the gift of the goddess. Okay, so this is where we move back again out of the instinct and into the belief. But now it's a new belief, right? Like that you have this new belief of, I don't need to be my child's best friend. In fact, they can actually hate me for the rest of their lives because I am doing this in service to them and this is what they need. Okay, so that's like the new belief that I have there. And that's the gift of the goddess. Is there's always some kind of a gift that you get at the end of that kind of transformation. And when you get into the acceptance and integration, there's some kind of a gift that is given to you at that point. And it's different for every single one of you. All right. So whatever that gift looks like, it's different for each of you. With this example of the one that was for my daughter, my gift specifically was that I was able to write about it. I was able to write a specific blog about that, which will be coming out in a couple of weeks, about what it was like to push my daughter that hard and to break myself. Like, and she was breaking too. Okay. So to break myself and my old beliefs and then be able to find these new beliefs in myself. So there's some kind of a gift, and it's totally different for every single person. There's always a gift at the end. All right. So that gift comes, there's a return back into your old world that you were in before. And then this invitation to share that gift, whatever it is, with the people around you, right? So the sharing of that gift could be, maybe it's I want to have like a girls' play date over at my house and I want to talk about this kind of stuff. Or I don't even want to talk about this kind of stuff. I just feel called to have this play date over at my house with girls, or to set up a group for girls where we get together once a month, or whatever it is. Okay. So that is an example of the heroic journey. And it takes us back up into this area of belief at the end. Let's go back to it so you can see. It takes us back up into this area of belief at the end, and then we come back up to the top of this circle. And we hold this belief now inside of us, and we're kind of sharing it somehow with the world because we've been transformed in some way. That sharing can actually even just be in the way that you act and other people seeing it. Okay, so it's kind of whatever is the one that calls the most to you at that point. We're back up into this belief. You now have a new belief that you are holding in your head that you gained from that instinct before. At some point in your life, that new belief might be broken again. Okay, so you might go back through this heroine's journey. There might be some kind of an invitation to break that belief again in the heroine's journey at some point, because there's something that's calling out to you there. Okay, and you can, if you went through that whole heroine's journey in one day, if you did that, the next day you can wake up and you can have a different belief that you realize you're holding in your head that needs to be broken. There's something that's calling out to you that's saying, this new belief, this belief that we have today, this belief that I'm holding inside of my head that I now can hear out loud, that needs to be broken somehow. And you can go through the whole heroine's journey again that day if you want to. Now, let me tell you, if you go through a heroine's journey every single day, you will soon disappear in occlusion because you will be the most enlightened person on the planet. So it's hard, right? Like, it's hard to go through this. It is a trial. It's a journey. It's a hard thing to go through. And for most of us, we don't go through it every day. If you have the stamina to do that, you are the most amazing woman on the planet. And please share with me how you do that. And you can also see every season of your life as a heroine's journey. So you can see if you have started a new relationship, that can be an invitation to a heroine's journey. And the whole relationship itself can be a heroine's journey. Every year of that relationship can be the heroine's journey. As we're starting into a new school year, that can be an invitation to a journey. What am I going to accomplish this year? Right? Well, how am I going to look at this? And then as we're starting a new year, that's why a lot of times why people really actually do these New Year's resolutions, because we have this thing that's calling to us, our instinct is calling to us and is saying, there are these old stories, there are these old things that are there. They need to be broken somehow. And that's why we do these New Year's resolutions, because it makes us be like, okay, this is what my instinct is saying that I need to do, and here's an opportunity for me to do it. The hard part is that a lot of times when we do those New Year's resolutions, we don't know how to take the next step. And that is something that we do in our clubs. So facilitators, if you're watching this, that is kind of the setup for the heroine's journey. And then we are giving the step-by-step playbook throughout the whole rest of our meetings to how do you take the next steps in this journey in order to make this thing happen, okay? Whatever it is for that person. It's not my thing. Okay, so when we're working with people, when we're going through and facilitating workshops, it's not about me telling people how to do their things, all right? If a mom wants to be literally the most patient mom on the entire planet, that is amazing. And we probably need kids raised by people like that out there. They're just not going to be my kids. So do you understand that? Like, I'm not saying that you need to take on my beliefs or my stories or anything like that. All I'm saying is that this is a framework that's going to help you with whatever things are calling out to you for the future. And then facilitators, we're giving them the steps. We're giving them the tools as they're going through each one of the steps so that they can go through this journey and then come out at the end, okay? I hope that helps. If you have any questions or anything like that, please send me a note. You can comment below this video. You can do whatever you need to do in order to get in contact with me so that you can get a little bit more information about the heroic journey. If you want to watch any Disney princess movie, that's a really good example of the heroine's journey. And note the friends that the heroines have along the way. So Anna and Elsa, right? They have friends. There's Sven, there's Kristoff, there's Olaf. So they have friends along the way. There's always something there. And a lot of times on the heroine's journey, that friends, especially in Disney movies, is depicted as some kind of an animal. It's tapping into that instinct, right? That almost like animal instinct. And if you want a book about tapping into that instinct, Women Who Run with the Wolves is my absolute favorite. So that kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of where that instinct is and where it lies in us women. Okay? Shoot me any questions if you have any, and thanks for listening to me. Bye.